Lesson 111 is about conjunctions and disjunctions. Now you learned about conjunctions way back in lesson 46, and it's basically a combination of inequalities where you have basically boundaries and you shade in between those boundaries. And in lesson 46 we talked briefly about what a disjunction was. Basically they go in opposite directions. Con means together or with. Conjunctions, they go towards each other. Disjunctions go away from each other. Now, these conjunctions that you're going to learn about in this lesson are just a little more complex. There will be like a binomial in the middle of the set of inequalities, and you just use your additive property of the inequality and add the same amount to both sides of the inequality symbols. So what we would do here is add a positive 2 everywhere. And then we end up with 7 less than x less than equal to 12. And we always read from the x. We read from the x to the left, and we say x greater than 7, and then read to the right, x less than or equal to 12. So now we can go ahead and graph this relationship. We just needed to simplify that so that we had x by itself in the middle, just like we always do before we graph an inequality. And so here's a number line that we can use, and we'll say x greater than 7, so that means we're not including 7. So we'll put an open circle there, less than or equal to 12. We'll put a closed circle here. Now let's assume that these are real numbers that we're working with. Our domain is real numbers, so we'll just shade everything in between those two. And so that's what you do with a conjunction where you have a binomial in the middle. You just get x by itself, and you think of two separate inequalities. Do the additive property of inequality, add the same value everywhere, and that will get rid of your x, or your constant term there that was with the x. Now, something else to think about with a conjunction. We could write this as two inequalities. We would say x greater than 7, and, that's an important word, x less than or equal to 12. The conjunction won't work unless we have both statements, x greater than 7 and x less than or equal to 12. If we just had one or the other, then it wouldn't work, because if we just had x greater than 7, then it would continue on forever to the right. But that doesn't work for this relationship. It has to have both things happening together. That's why we say the word and. Now as disjunction, that's the difference, or one of the differences. We can use the word or because we can satisfy one condition or the other one. Look at practice problem B. Let's graph that disjunction. X greater than 7 or x less than or equal to 2. So we'll just make a number line. Put some points on there. And then let's graph this. X greater than 7, so that would be an open circle at 7. We'll assume real numbers here. We're working with real numbers, and then shade it in to the right. And then less than or equal to 2, so that would be a closed circle at 2 and shaded to the left to represent less than or equal. So see how they go away from each other, the two relationships? And you don't have to have one together with the other one for the relationship to work. It's just one or the other one. So anytime you see that word or, you know you have a disjunction. Plus, you can't write them like a conjunction. You can't write it all like on one line with the x variable in the middle and the inequalities on the sides, because they can be separate. They don't have to all be together. Conjunctions have to be together, so that's why you can write them like that. Look at practice problem C. We know it's a disjunction because we see that word or. Minus x is greater than minus 4, or x not less than 8. Well, let's go ahead and simplify both of those expressions first before we graph it. And so we'd say for minus x greater than minus 4, that's really going to be x. Remember, we reverse the inequality when we multiply by a negative, less than 4. And then the other term, x not less than 8, so that means it'll have to be greater than or equal to 8. So we have less than 4, greater than or equal to 8. Let's go ahead and graph that. And so I'll just start with a 2 here, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now we said our domain was integers. I wrote that up there. And so let's keep that in mind when we do our graph. X less than 4. So that means we would start at 3 because we're not including 4. It's less than that. And so we'll put a dot there, shade in the arrow. X greater than or equal to 8, we will include 8, 9, 10, and we'll shade in the arrow to show that we're continuing on. Disjunctions, they go away from each other. Conjunctions, they go towards each other. Okay, well that's all for lesson 111.